Okay, so by now you must be thinking, at the start of this series, you said we were going to talk about pointers. We've gone through 3 videos and we haven't talked about pointers yet. Okay, so if you're tired of waiting, this is the video to watch. This is when we talk about pointers. Okay, so let's make a scenario where we need to represent a student and that student's favorite subject. Okay, do you want to try and do that? So let's make the subject first. We'll say, oop, nope, didn't mean to add that. We'll say type def struct, and then we'll call this struct subject. And then the subject maybe has a code. So maybe ComSci21 would be 21 and ComSci11 would be 11 and so on. So let's just say it's a int code. Okay? Now we can make our student. Student would then be composed of maybe an age and then that student's favorite subject. Subject. There you are. Okay. So do you notice that subject, because we've defined it as our type in the previous step, we can use subject instead of any of our primitive types. We can say fab subject is a subject. Okay? Now, let's play around with some student and subjects for now, and then we'll see what the behavior this is. So let's say we'll make a student, and then maybe that student's name, maybe Bob. Maybe Bob is, say, 16 years old, 17 years old. And then we need a favorite subject for Bob. So let's make a subject. Say it's ComSci21. And then ComSci21's code would be just 21. Okay. Now, if we were to say that Bob's favorite subject was ComSci21, we could make Bob and say 17 is his age and his favorite subject is ComSci21. All right. Okay. So now, let's see what happens when we try and print Bob's favorite subject. Let's say %i. We want to print the code of Bob's favorite subject. So we'll say Bob dot fab subject, and this produces the subject CMSC21 supposedly, and then we'll say dot code to produce the code. All right. And then at the same time, let's also print the code for ComSci21. All right, so do you notice I'm accessing the members of the struct using the dot operator? Since favorite subject is also a struct, then I can also use the dot operator on that to access the members of favorite subject. Okay, let's try and run this and see what comes out. Forget wall. There you are, as expected. Bob's favorite subject is ComSci21. Okay, now, what if, let's make a scenario where ComSci21's code had to change somehow. So let's say there was a curriculum revision and then the subjects were reordered and they were assigned new numbers. So maybe ComSci21, instead of having a code called 21, maybe it was now, let's say, 1021, something like that. Now we know that ComSci21 is still Bob's favorite subject, so we can do that. And let's see what happens. So as expected, it should produce 1, 0 to 1. Okay, but let's try this. What if we changed the value for ComSci21 after we assigned ComSci21 to Bob as his favorite subject? What if we said this? We need to say this is a subject. Okay. All right. So what do we expect? What should be the output? So previously, the output was 1021, 1021. What should the output be now? Will it still be 1021, 1021? So take a moment to make a guess, and then I'm going to run the program. All right. Do you have your guess now? Write it down so that you're committed. Okay, let's see what happens. Aha! It seems that while it's correct that CMSC21's code is now 1021, the code for Bob's favorite subject, which should still be CMSC21, is still 21. It hadn't changed. What happened? Okay, so here's why that happened. So if you looked at the diagram of what happened here, when we made Bob, we said his age was 17. And then when we made ComSci21, we said that the code for ComSci21 was 21. Now, when we assigned CMSC21 as Bob's favorite subject, we did not actually make a reference from the student to the subject. When I say reference, that may not make sense very much right now, but it might become clear a little bit later. What happened instead was that the data from CMSC21, the elements of CMSC21, its members, namely code, was copied to the student's favorite subject. So actually, we don't have one struct subject. We have two of them. We have one that represents our CMSC21, and we have another one that represents the student's favorite subject. So what happened was, when we assigned ComSci21 to student as his favorite subject, what happened was the members of subject CMSC21 were copied onto the student's favorite subject. So that became 21. So do you see? There are two separate structs. This is not referring to one struct. So subject of the student, favorite subject, does not refer to the subject that we assigned. Only the values of its members were copied. Now, what happens then when we reassigned CMSC21's subject? Let's change that so that instead it says CMSC21.code is equal to 1021. That's better. Oop, missed a semicolon. Okay, is that clearer? Output's just the same. What happens is that when we reassigned the value of code to 1021, the CMSC21's code's value changed 1021, but it did nothing to the favorite subject of our student Bob, because favorite subject was a copy of the values of our CMSC21 members and not a reference to it. So do you see why it produces 102121? Okay, now what do we do when we want to, instead of copying the values of subject to our favorite subject here, what do we want to do if instead we want a reference? So instead of this, let's get rid of this box here, and then just say fav subject is a refers to, let's see if I can get an arrow out. Let's see, there you are. It's a pretty big arrow. Refers to this subject. Gets? So that whenever we change the value of this subject, then student's value will be changed as well. Okay, we can do that using pointers. Instead of having a subject as a member of our student, we want to have a pointer of subject to our favorite to our favorite to our favorite subject. Okay? So let's say struct struct. Alright, incompatible type subject. We didn't need that in the first place. Okay. So the problem was, instead of assigning CMSC21, so our definition now, instead of having a favorite subject as our member of student, we have a subject pointer as our favorite subject. So this is where pointers come in. Pointers are references to types and not the values themselves. So for example, the way we declare a subject pointer is by putting a pointer at the end of the type name. So this now is a pointer to a subject. So now, when I assign CMSC21 to Bob as his favorite subject, I should assign the address of CMSC21. Okay. We'll explain what that means a little bit later. And since favorite subject is now a pointer, we can not a struct, we can't use the dot operator, we should use the arrow operator. Okay, I'll explain all of this in the next video, but let's see what this comes out. All right, 1021, 1021. Because now, whatever CMSC21.code is, when that changes, 1023 for example, then the Bob's favorite subject code will also change, because instead of having the value copied from the subject to the student now points to the subject. Favorite subject points to the subject. It refers to the subject. It is a reference for the subject. All right.